If we have seen words from the current U.S. President Biden, and he said that the United States has the commitments to militarily defending Taiwan for 3 times. And some people thought that this is probably a slip of the tongue in the past. But for 3 times, it's hard to believe that that was like an accident or any kind of coincidence. He might have done that on purpose. Okay, he might have done that as a sign to China that the United States has a commitment, maybe not to the extent of militarily intervening in the conflict between China and Taiwan, but the United States will do something with China, and also the isolation of Taiwan becomes even more visible, internationally visible, that people know about that, like what you mentioned, the 2 versus 2 debates. That you do that every single meeting, WHA meeting, maybe it's a minor distance, but accumulatively, we will see, at the end of the day, something will be achieved.
Welcome to TaiwanPlus Point. I'm Catherine Liu. The WHA is where global health experts come together to decide next year WHO's health agenda. Despite its non-political nature, Taiwan has been rejected to participate in WHA as an observer for 6 consecutive years. Today, we have 2 frontline experts to talk about why and global response towards it, and also can Taiwan rejoin WHA. Our guests today are Legislator Lin Ching-yi, who just returned from Geneva after leading a delegation to advocate for Taiwan's participation, and also Professor Albert Chiu, who is a foreign policy expert at Tunghai University. Legislator, can you tell us what it was like to lead a delegation to Geneva? There were so many different delegations. What are the priorities for various different WHA delegations?
Actually, our delegation is very special situations because most of the countries, all the countries, actually they have only 1 delegation from the Minister of Health Bureau. But Taiwan, because our official delegation actually have some difficulty to participate in the conference. So we have 2 delegations, one leading by our Minister of Health and Welfare and Wellbeing Department, and second we call Shidaotuan, guide and check from our parliament. Sometimes we want to see what our diplomatic work there. And second, sometimes we have another different positions. For example, actually we are representative of people. So sometimes when our minister or our office, actually they are difficult to participate in some conference or have some to meet some people come from another countries, and we have another the way to participate or to meet some people, or to have sometimes when our for example the minister, he or she couldn't say something, we could, because in diplomatic countries, actually all we believe the value actually we could choose have the voices for our populations. So this time the delegation or we say annually we have the delegation from Parliament of Taiwan. Actually, the viewpoint is these missions.
What are the goals of this Shidaotuan, and do you see any difficulties achieving them?
Actually, the Shidaotuan, because actually that means we are the delegation of Parliament. So of course, if you just to observe, you be a visitor to participate in the conference, actually it's more easier, because actually you are not official members of government. So I think this is because our diplomatic difficulty situations, we have another way by the delegation from Parliament.
And I see. We're talking about WHO and WHA on this episode. What are your thoughts on the nature of WHO? Because many believe that China is behind the curtain, have so much impact on this organization. And do you think it will somehow affect its effectiveness?
Well, actually, WHO as a specialized agency of UN, it has the responsibility for combating epidemic and also pandemic in various areas of the world. So, to me, the whole institute should be apolitical. But unfortunately, in the past several years, we saw that the General Secretary Tedros, he himself, of course, is not representative of the whole institutes, but he himself, to me, more or less leads the institutes in a political declaration. For example, he resists Taiwan's engagement with the WHA, even as an observer of WHA. So that's very unfortunate. But at any rate, to me, Tendros is only part of WHA. So we cannot say that his attitudes or his behavior are, is really representative of the whole thing. It's certainly unfair to say that the WHA does nothing or does not really contribute to the world in combating the coronavirus disease at all. But I think it could do better in the future.
Why is it so important for Taiwan to be accepted as an observer in WHA?
As we can observe from the pandemic experience, is that even for those G7 advanced democracies, for example, UK or United States or Germany, they really did not really deal with the pandemic that properly at the early stage of the pandemic, right? I mean, the death toll hits a record high, and a lot of people really had a problem with recovering from the pandemic. So a lot of people die, a lot of people get hurt, and so I think even those advanced democracy, they really had the problem with dealing with the pandemic. And Taiwan, as just Legislator Lin mentioned, that we are pretty much isolated in international health community. So we really have to help ourselves. For example, 20 years back, in the WH, I mean the experience of SARS, we really have to do that on our own.
The SARS experience is very important for Taiwan.
Right.
So that during that time, we are such isolated from the international global health, public health society.
Right.
So after that, actually, we also be rejected by the representative of China during in WHA. So we build our regulations, our law, and our policies
All by ourselves.
by
On
ourselves.
our own, yes.
So this is why in recent 2 years, when we have some conference with another countries to talk about the pandemic policies in Taiwan, I always say why we we could have this kind of very rapid actions for pandemic, because we are so isolated in decades. So we build our ability by ourselves and some friends of countries.
Yeah, that was an important lesson, some 20
From 20
years
years ago.
Right, so like we learned from it. And so just answering your question, the meaning of our participation in the WHO is not really about we gain something from WHO,
It's
but
to
also
offer.
vice versa, right? We can offer something. And the offer really, like what I mentioned, like what I emphasize, is really should be apolitical. But Tendros, I mean, more or less associated with the Chinese regime, really is resisting to this trend where Taiwan is part of the World Health task really. And not to mention that in the beginning of the pandemic, we were good at manufacturing facial masks and also other type of related medical facilities. So I think it's meaningless for us to just keep out of the whole thing. So that's kind of my basic argument.
Okay, since you say we can offer more, we want to participate. So I see U.S. also issued a strong statement in support of Taiwan's participation, also followed by a strong condemnation from Beijing. Do you see it's a series of U.S. testing China's red line?
Well, this is a good question because, I mean, if we have seen words from the current U.S. President Biden, and he say that the United States has the commitments to militarily defending Taiwan for 3 times. And some people thought that this is probably a slip of the tongue in the past. But for 3 times, it's hard to believe that that was like an accident or any kind of coincidence. He might have done that on purpose. Okay, he might have done that as a sign to China that the United States has a commitment, maybe not to the extent of militarily intervening in the conflict between China and Taiwan, but the United States will do something. And the example of the Ukrainian-Russia war has demonstrated that the United States can do that. Okay, so in the whole background of including the issue we brought up about the WHA, yes, and also the tension between the United States and China, and not to mention that we have witnessed the recent activity in Singapore, the Shangri-La security talk, where the defense Secretary of Defense from the United States, the not Anthony Blinken, but the Secretary of Defense, he mentioned that the United States did not really want to change the status quo. China does. China actually want to see something different, but the Chinese government really used that as an excuse to blame the United States and blame Taiwan. But they never really think about themselves and what they did in the past. So it's not the United States did something to China. Certainly it's not Taiwan did something to China, but vice versa.
I see. Legislator, back to WHO-WHA issue. Were you surprised that U.S. Issue a strong support along with so many other countries? Were you surprised, or do you have any feelings back then when you're leading the delegation there?
This time we really very touched for their support. And especially during the first day, and some countries actually not, they are not the real diplomatic relations with Taiwan. Mm-hmm. For example, Germany, U.S., England, actually they have voices for Taiwan. I want to point out a very special situation that the conference, actually every country, they have 5 minutes to echo the target of this kind of a conference target.
Each country 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay.
They could to report what they do for the issues, or they could to have some voices or arguing about what the global society need to do. But they support Taiwan during their speakings. So it means they need to squeeze their viewpoint for their selves issues and have sometimes to speak for Taiwan.
Right.
So that is really very important. Some people, maybe they do not know about that. Maybe people will think they just raise a hand, I support Taiwan. No, they support Taiwan during their command or their report for the very important issues.
Based on what reasons do you think they want to use up their 5 minutes to support Taiwan?
I think that is, first, I want to say that is really, we need to thank you all our diplomatic workers in the international societies. But also, I think this have some 3-step difference. Before maybe 2009, when we talk about we want to participate WHA, we always say you couldn't lead our 23 million populations lack of the global health issues, right? We say we couldn't be left behind. And of course, special situations in the agreement with China, so we could to participate in the conference as a visitor, as an observer. But since the pandemic, maybe before pandemic in 2017 until now, especially after the pandemic, most of the countries understand Taiwan have the ability, and Taiwan have the mission and have the responsibility to cooperate with global society, to keep the policies, to have the communicate or cooperate in health issues or medical issues. So I think this is very important, is what our 23 million people and our government make the global society understand. Actually, we need the global society, but also they need us. We need to cooperate in the future to facing the communicated disease or non-communicated disease. So that is actually, they are not to have the voices for Taiwan only because Taiwan are so poor, it's unfair to Taiwan. No, actually now the voices, it means Taiwan is important partner, and we couldn't to lack of the power from Taiwan.
The narrative is changed.
Yes.
The narrative has changed. Now people and also international society believe that Taiwan has so much to offer. Many people believe that it's because we have universal healthcare system since way back, right? How does that work in Taiwan?
Well, the healthcare system in Taiwan is really our strength. I mean, think about how much trouble and how much difficulty we have to overcome during the pandemic. Is such that you really have this great healthcare system where we have records of our patients, especially those patients with a chronic illness history. And that helps our CDC to quickly or constantly have a hold of who needs the medical care the first, okay? Especially after they get infected by the coronavirus, and who tend to afford the longer wait time because they are like mild, their symptom is mild. So I think this type of institutional setup and also the methodology were used for the medical supply or even medical assistance to those infected patients is really valuable. Especially it is valuable to the international health community in the WHA. So simply talking about all these kind of issues that really suggest that the health issue should be non-political, should be apolitical, rather than anything that's in a calculation of the Chinese regime, and just think about you have to recognize the Taiwan is part of China. It's a political issue, but it's not that. We simply fall back on to the original basis. That's the human health.
Is that the reason why we could recover from the pandemic so well?
I think, of course, the health insurance system actually built our whole nation's ability to dealing with the pandemic or disease management. For example, another viewpoint is, I think in 2020s, when we have the policies for the face mask policies, or we could to have the system to use our national health insurance card. You have the system, you have the data in that, and actually because of our over 99.9 populations, actually they have the same systems. So we could to dealing with that to have a more good regulations and the system to build. But I think I still want to say a little different viewpoint about that. First, we always say Taiwan, we have the very good policies of national health insurance. But until now, I think there is not any one country to have the same policy with Taiwan.
Yeah, it's all different.
Yeah, so that is why I always say that if we participate, we have the ability to participate the WHA or WHO. Actually, that is, we're not only one our value, because this kind of experience is a little difficult to
duplicate to other
in
nations.
Other countries. Yeah. But I think very important I want to mention is we have the infection disease law in Taiwan in 2000. We renewed that in 2004. It means because we experienced SARS in 2003. So we renew the law to make central government have the directions of based on the law, give you the basic. So you could see we have very rapid actions when we set up the center with CECC. So we could have the resources, equipment, policy in very rapid times to the actions to that. But another countries, because actually they have WHO. They are a member of WHO. So they are waiting for WHO to talk to you. What you could do? What will be happened?
Well, they waited so long.
Yeah, they wait for that. And even this time we could know the WHO released wrong information to their members. Wow. So during the very initiate of the pandemic, they got wrong information from WHO. But us, we have regulations, have law, and actually we have the culture to face pandemic in very rapid times, very short times. So I think that is another why we could to dealing the pandemic different with another country in this pandemic.
Is this the reason why international society support Taiwan to rejoin more and more?
Right. Well, I mean, before answering that question, I would like to add up a little bit by also, mentioning our civic culture, so to speak. The habits of wearing face, the face mask. Okay, so think about, in other countries, the scenario is such that they don't want to wear face masks, right? For example, in the United States, especially those states where the Republicans is the majority, people, they tend to fight against the regulation policy from the government, by saying that you have to wear masks. Okay, to them, individual freedom should outweigh government regulation. Okay, so that's kind of hard for the government like that to push through or to implement the prevention policy during the pandemic. But in Taiwan, people do that voluntarily. I would say 95% of the people, even without any oversight from the government, they would just wear face masks because they know the cost of getting infected. Although I know that now the infection is not as severe to ordinary people. Many people got infected, got recovered from that. But in the past, when the immunity was not that strong and not a lot of people got vaccines, they really had to protect themselves. So number one is the voluntary civic culture in Taiwan really helps to overcome the pandemic to a large extent. And the second is that I think we do have a sense of unity in Taiwan, that if I don't make sure myself is safe in this kind of scenario, in this kind of pandemic, then I might pass the disease to other people, to my family, to my friends, to my colleagues, and they don't want to do that. So that's a sense of civic responsibility. I don't see that much happening in a Western society, even in the advanced democracies.
That's the reason why Taiwan has so much to offer to export this kind of experience to international society, right, and also participate in WHA.
Sure.
Right?
But at the same time, this is why our experience is really work. One of the different viewpoint is China, they have their regulations, but that is not based on the democratic systems. So Taiwan's experience could to share to global democratic countries, because during the pandemic, all the countries are watching what will be better system, better management during pandemic. And Taiwan, we show the global society that you could balance in human rights and your pandemic control. It's totally different with China. So that make more the democratic countries understand actually they could be the partner, or they could use our experience with their countries.
With so much to offer, and Legislator Lin, you just said every year since 2017, Taiwan has tried so hard to become an observer at WHA, and you've personally involved in this effort. Do you see any positive results?
I think the very important is since 2017, our diplomatic countries actually they help us to apply that Taiwan want to become an observer in WHA. These are very important actions. And second, because this apply, the conference will have we say a 2-to-2 debate. I think the 2-to-2 debate is very important for Taiwan, because that is a very important opportunity to make international global society understand why Taiwan should to be an observer or to participate in WHA. Because during the debate, we have our diplomatic countries or friendly countries were spoke for Taiwan. And usually they will say one viewpoint is leave no one behind. Actually, that is the viewpoint from WHO. And second, especially this year, they will have the voices that Taiwan, we have the ability, especially in public health and the medical policies, to become a member to participate that. And at the same time, China and another countries, they will have opposite viewpoints. But their viewpoint, until now, I think the global society understands Taiwan we really have abilities. So their viewpoint only the political problems that they always say the one China principle. So during that debate, make all the include the medical background society and international society to view the point. In Taiwan, actually, we want to participate as the public health issues, as a member of public health, the provider or partners. But in China, the only one reason to ban, to not allow Taiwan to participate, only based on political problems. So I think that is very important, very good example, very good announce to make people understand actually the problem is not based on Taiwan. Actually, all the problems is based on China's political issues.
To make the whole world understand better. Yeah. I still don't understand with so many countries' support and also including the U.S. support, what is lacking for us to get further and positive results?
Well, actually, I would like to explain a little bit about the prevention measure against the pandemic in different countries. We just mentioned the problem with the Western advanced countries such as the United States or in Germany. People over there, they love that type of laissez-faire culture better because they don't like too much of the government regulation. Even worse, because a lot of people get affected, even die because of their resistance to wearing masks. However, on the other hand, we see another extreme. The other extreme is in China, right? They do have this containment policy. They, pretty much imprison their people, and does not let the citizens to go out to shop and to purchase goods. So that's the point here is that, Legislator Lin, as she mentioned, I think he put it quite well. Our policy, our culture, our methods is in between. It's in between. We used to say that everything's better when it comes from the West, from the Western society. I mean, they have more advanced technology. They have better experience in dealing with everything, but not this time. So that is why, I keep saying that our experience should be apolitical. And that is why we can contribute to the world by joining WHO. But like what she suggests, that perhaps it's hard because if you want to join the WHA, even as an official member, we have to get in the UN. And that means we're going to be considered as a country, okay? But it's hard given the fact that the Chinese governments are, at any cost to try to prevent us from contacting the international community. But we still have to keep doing that. I think one good thing about that is that the problem with China and also the isolation of Taiwan becomes even more visible, internationally visible, that people know about that, like what you mentioned, the 2 versus 2 debates. That you do that every single meeting, WHA meeting, maybe it's a minor distance, but accumulatively, we will see, at the end of the day, something will be achieved. Right, so we shouldn't be giving up.
So we will keep doing it, fighting our way back.
Sure. I think now we always say we want to meaningful participate. I could say one a short experience during maybe in 2018, when the 2 versus 2 debate. During that time, we still have a visitor seat. The visitor come from the international, the medical backgrounds organizations. So when 2 visits to debate, the China still voices about because of political problems, because of DPP government, so they were not allowed Taiwan to participate. One professor come from, as my understanding is a nurse's background. She looked at me and use the phrase, what is talking about that? It means more and more the professional backgrounds people, they could understand all the problems, not Taiwan. Actually, is based on very ridiculous viewpoint from China. So I think that is really good example that we talk about these issues, make more people understand us. Why I want to say people? When people understand us, they will ask their parliament members and their government support Taiwan. So that is very important viewpoint, especially in democratic countries. And then the meaningful participate in past years in our government and in our parliament, we always try to, we will host some the two or the bilateral or multilateral conference during the WHA period in Geneva. As my understanding, Minister Chen, actually he had ever experienced about over 60 multilateral or bilateral conference with another country's minister or the delegation members.
Over
in
60s,
Geneva.
yeah.
Yes, so it means we couldn't to participate in the official conference, but we could host the two bilateral or multilateral conference to talk about how our government or our organization and organizations, we could cooperate in medical issues, in public health issues.
That's the reason why we still go every year.
Yes.
The whole delegation, right?
Yes, that's why we need to go there to participate that. We host ourselves the meetings to meet that very important members or friends from another countries during in Geneva during WHA.
I see. So despite not having an official seat at WHA, we can still contribute as much as we could. Thank you so much. That's all for today. Thank you, Legislator Lin and also Professor Chiu. For more information, please download the TaiwanPlus app. I'm Catherine Liu. I'll see you next time.